Hello and welcome to this Legal Insights webinar run by Kaizen Synergy Law Firm. My name is Nihal Samara. I'm the General Counsel and Legal Director here at Kaizen Synergy Law Firm, and I'd like to welcome you all to today's session. Today's session repeats the works and webinars that we have run over the past few weeks. It is particularly important focusing on directors' ID rules, and we're also going to give you a snapshot of where we are heading over the next 12 months with the Legal Insights webinar series focusing on governance, risk, and compliance works for community service organizations. But today's session really focuses on the director ID rules and the new legislative compliance obligations that agencies do need to follow. Now, there is some confusion still with director ID requirements and what this means for charities in particular and those incorporated associations and other entities as well. So essentially, what we have seen on the ACNC site is a number of areas that actually causing a bit of confusion, and we hope to clarify these for yourselves today. So essentially, there is the new rule that directors of companies do need to have a director ID. And if you look on the ACNC site, when we've just taken snapshots of this over the past few days, is that essentially on the newsletter it says anyone who is a director of a charity that is a company or Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander corporation will need to apply for a director ID number. However, equally on the other page, which you can see on the top right-hand corner, it says a director identification number is a unique identifier that company directors, including some charities, will require. Now, what this has caused is a bit of confusion because what is essentially the meaning of some charities? Now, it is added concern for directors and community service organisations because the ABRS, the Australian Business Services Registry, has equally published a notification to say that it may take up to 56 business days for directors' ID applications to be processed. Now, that said, we will add that there's also confusion that directors have tried to jump onto their MyGov portal to apply for this, and it's caused actually some concerns on what to actually do. So that being said, we do have the requirements that they do need to look at, and essentially we do need to see what they actually do need to do, and that is what we are going to cover off today and ensure that you meet your obligations. So what does this mean for directors and community service organizations? Well, let's have a look at the two questions that we've been answering over the past few weeks and just to clarify what the requirements are. Particularly for directors, who needs to apply and when, and what are the rules? As always, we'd just like to pay our respects to the elders past and present upon the lands on which we all meet. While this session is being run by webinar and recorded, we do pay our respects to the traditional owners accordingly. So some recommendations straight up of what you need to look at. Well, firstly, we suggest that you review this legal webinar and update. We are recording this webinar and will circulate it to all attendees that have joined us and will continue to join us over the next few months coming up on governance, risk and compliance information. And this legal webinar series will be extended to cover other topics. We suggest that you also look at the policy document that is available on your Gemba dashboard, set up the director's ID where required, and also record the director IDs on your governance, risk and compliance site as well too. Now, what does this actually look like? And let's go through who is actually covered by this and what the requirements actually are for your agency to consider. We also, as I mentioned before, just have a policy document template that you can also use that cover directors' IDs, and I will show you what that looks like. I can see that there are a few questions coming through, which is great. A few people have asked about the logins to Gembus and the governance, risk and compliance resource that you all have access to. So let me just cover that off right now so that you can see how to access that and where to actually go. So first of all, you will get access, if you don't already, to the Gemba 360 dashboard, which is our governance, risk and compliance system that our law firm operates as and manages. Now, with this, you can access this by going to gemba360.com. You will all get access to this legal resource. Enter your username and password in. And when you log in, you will get access to this dashboard that you can see here. First of all, the policy templates are located in the Gemba Docs area under policies and procedures, and they are template documents that you can use. I will just slide this across here for yourselves to be able to view. This is the policy template. It's a Word document that you do have access to, and you can amend it all if you like. You can cut and paste it out, but essentially it covers off all that I'm talking about in today's session, and you can simply go in and actually update your agency name within it. Now, straight up, one of the things I will mention is that this policy, there is, which we will cover off, there is no need for directors to supply your agency with their director ID. There's no legal compliance obligation as yet. And we've actually identified that. So essentially what we've said here is that there is currently no requirement to provide your director ID to ASIC or to the companies you're a director of. However, and with this is where we've added in, insert your agency name, which you can simply do a search and replace. We've suggested that all agencies that we support actually ask their directors for their director ID number, and you actually record this number down. The reason that we ask for that is that there are fines that can be imposed upon the directors as well too, and obviously that causes problems for your governance board or committee, and it's also some criminal and civil sanctions as well too. We also walk you through how to actually update that into your governance portal as well too on Gemba, and also this will send you out reminders of what to do. So it is a full procedure document that you can use. We actually suggested that you actually commence it on today, and then you have the review date on the 1st of July 2023, obviously being the start of the financial year next year. So with that all, I will also mention that we do have a self-assessment checklist that I will come to, that we are also covering off in the upcoming sessions. So let's have a look at the director ID governance obligations that your agency's directors need to meet in some circumstances. So essentially, a director ID is a unique identifier that a director will apply for once and keep forever. This will help prevent the use of false or fraudulent director IDs, and all directors of a company, a registered Australian body, a registered foreign company, or an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander corporation will need a director ID. Now, ASIC is responsible for enforcing director ID offences as set out under the Corporations Act. Let's be quite clear, it is a criminal offence if directors do not apply on time, and penalties may apply. Now, who needs a director ID? And this webinar that we've been running has been repeated a few times, and we have repeated it today as well because there's been such a strong interest from agencies like yourselves that are attending. So essentially, you need a director ID if you are an eligible officer of, firstly, a company, a registered Australian body, so that means an incorporated association that has an ARBN number or operates outside their state or territory, a registered foreign company under the Corporations Act, or an ATSI registered corporation under the CATSI Act. So essentially, all these people that hold director positions or alternate director positions are required to apply for the director ID. Now, we have covered this off of who this applies to, And it's important to note that a director ID must be applied for by each individual director, and each director that's required to do so, if they don't meet their compliance obligations, would be considered to be in breach of their current obligations under the Companies Corporations Act in Australia, or the CATSI Act if it is an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander company as well. So essentially, how to check your agency's compliance? Well, essentially, you can do it in a couple of ways. One is your agency might have an ACN number or an ARBN number, or registered with ORIC, and in that case, you will have an ICN number. If you have any of these, then essentially you are required to, your directors will be required to have a director ID. Now, keeping in mind that essentially a lot of these dates have now passed. So from the 1st of November 2021 to 4th of April, it is 28 days. If it's on or after 5th of April 2022, you must apply for being appointed. Now, if you have been appointed before or on the 31st of October 2021, you must apply by the 30th of November 2022, which is essentially in the next day. So you've got a couple of days, including today, to actually sort these out if you are a director. Now, under the ABRS, you will see on my first slide that it could take up to 56 days for this to apply. That's if you don't have your if the directors don't have all their paperwork together. We know that in the last few weeks, directors have called up the ABRS with all of their information at hand as well too, or gone onto their MyGov app portal and lodged it that way. So that being said, you can, in some circumstances, get it a lot quicker, but under the ARBS register website, it is saying up to 56 days. So there are a couple of questions that agencies are asking. Firstly, am I required to provide my director ID to ASIC or the companies that they stand for? At this stage, there is no current requirement to provide your director ID to ASIC or to the companies you're a director of. We will keep you up to date with these changes as this comes up, but at this stage, there is no requirement. That being said, I will add that the policy document that we have put up, and here it is here, we are suggesting that agencies do ask their directors for it. And the reason, quite simply, for this is that in other circumstances, you do ask your staff for police checks or working with children checks. If they're ARPA registered, then again, you may actually ask them to supply this information or their driver's license. So as part of your good governance processes, we do recommend that you actually do follow this policy that we have. And this will also be circulated to all of you today. Essentially, are there any changes to existing company notification requirements? Well, the short answer is no. The director ID does not replace or change existing requirements to keep company records. Now, what are the director ID offences and penalties? Now, ABRS will provide support and guidance to directors to help them understand this and meet their director ID. But in short, value to have a director ID when required to do so. So after the 30th of November, there are some significant penalties, both criminal and civil, that can be applied to directors individually as well too. It also means that directors should not apply for multiple director IDs. And again, there is up to $26,640 fines, both criminal and civil penalties, and up to a year imprisonment. So these fines are significant against directors, and obviously having criminal and civil penalties will actually unduly affect the companies that they represent as well. So there are steps that directors do need to follow. We're not going to go through all of this today, but just essentially to cover these off, and you will get copies of this recording in terms of completing applications and what directors do need to do. Again, if they do live in Australia, what is some of the information that they do need to have at hand and supply to the ABRS. If they do live outside Australia, then you can apply for an extension. But again, it is cautiously that we recommend that you do this. You can find this on your Gemba 360 dashboard as well too. But if you do need an extension, we do suggest that you utilize this and get this in as soon as possible. Now, our recommendations are quite straightforward. We do suggest that you review this legal webinar. We will be circulating this out today, and our staff will be contacting all the attendees that have joined us. More than happy to make a time this week to go through these with you and support you across your governance, risk, and compliance obligations. Now, I will just add for agencies that are joining us, we are running a series of webinars, as I mentioned, under the legal insights topics that will expand over the next few months. And that being said, we will be covering off specific governance, risk, and compliance obligations of what your community service organization does need to look at. These things do include, and I will cover these off, an overview of your governance, compliance obligations, your standards that you need to meet. We will be taking apart specific areas, setting up toolkits for your agency to use, which will cover financial abuse, cybersecurity topic, working with partners, safeguarding vulnerable people, and also risk registers. We will be covering off each of the topics of risk management, financial abuse topic, cybersecurity topic, which is quite timely, working with partners topic and standards, and also safeguarding vulnerable people and what this means for your agency. Now, all of these resources and policy documents, which you will get access to, is available in your Gemba dashboard. What we have opened up for all agencies is the governance, risk, and compliance dashboard. This allows you to access, for example, this self-assessment tool, and we will be going through all of these topics prior to the Christmas break period. All of these you can go in and you can answer. You might be able to answer some of these. It doesn't matter if you can't tick yes to all of these, but you should be able to from a governance, risk, and compliance area. We will be covering off specific and providing you with specific policies in order to support this as well. Once you've done this self-assessment, you can click on Save Form and you can amend this form as you need to. And here is one that I've saved back on the 12th of the 9th. And as I go through the webinars, I'm actually updating this for all attendees. So this resource is available for you. You can and you will be sent your logins if you don't already have it. Once you log in today, have a look, and our staff, Gemba 360 legal compliance staff, will actually contact you to make a time to go through these webinars with you as well too. More than happy to stay online and answer any questions that you might have. If you are watching this recording after today's live session, then by all means, please reach out to us on 1300 360 360 or email us at support@gemba360.com.